hey, if you love doing yes, then go do Venture Up, do a startup weekend, go do Hatch, go do a Lightning Lab program. Our purpose is to be the building blocks, to be the pipeline into those other programs.
Episode 76 with Terry Shubkin, CEO of Young Enterprise Trust, sharing being good with money, growing business, embracing the journey, and work-life blend, published Thursday 29th of April 2018. This is TWICE, which stands for Talks with Innovators, Creatives and Enterprises. I'm David Binstead. Terry Shubkin is Chief Excitement Officer of the Young Enterprise Trust, an organisation which has helped build financial literacy for young people via their signature YES programme, which stands for Young Enterprise Scheme. That extends to every secondary school in New Zealand. Today she's chatting with New Zealand's food organiser, Rebecca Stewart, about preparing young people with the skills and tools for an uncertain future of work. Over to her.
I'm pleased to welcome Terry Shubkin.
Kia ora. Thank you so much.
Terry, could you just speak really briefly about what Young Enterprise Trust does and what your values and your mission is?
So at Young Enterprise, what we're really trying to do is prepare young people for business and in life. And so what we talk about is creating enterprising young people. And we use the word enterprising because there's so many different facets to it. At a core level, it's actually about just giving young people critical work-ready skills, critical life skills. Some people call them 21st century skills. So things like teamwork, communication, problem solving, resilience, things that will help them be successful no matter what they do in life. And then from our perspective, if we can get more young people thinking about that, then we might actually spark an interest in being innovative. So if we get a few more innovators out there, then whatever company they work for, they'll help to be better in that. And then we might get a few startup addicts. So, people that actually get the entrepreneurial spirit and go on to set up their own companies. And then some might get even more successful, and we might even get an odd disruptor out there or two. And for us, what we're trying to do is cater to all of that. And the way we do that is we have programs that run in secondary schools that give kids real-life practical experiences about running their own business. And that's really exciting.
Yeah, interesting. And what made you want to start as young as that? Why not focus at university age, for example?
So in fairness, actually, when I say secondary schools, we actually make our programs and resources available from year one. And there were some really great studies that came out. There was something that came out of the Kauffman Foundation many years ago from the U.S., which said that 1/3 of 5-year-olds have the traits and attributes naturally to be entrepreneurial. But by the time you graduate high school, it's down to 3%. So like anything else in life, the earlier you start, the better. What 5-year-old doesn't think they can do anything in the world? And isn't that what being enterprising is all about? So let's capture that and nurture that and develop it. And then by the time they actually go off to tertiary study or whatever pathway they do, they're more experienced, they're more excited about the world of business, about the world of entrepreneurship, about innovation.
Another way to look at it, I suppose, is what is it about the schooling system that brings that 5% down to the 3%? Do you have any comments on the way that the school systems currently run, or prefer not to?
Yeah, a very good question. And I think schooling is changing right now. So there's certainly a lot more focus on inquiry learning. I know when I started, people were like, oh, there's this new thing about student-centric learning, And it's actually, Young Enterprise, we've been doing that for 37 years. So letting the students dictate their own learning pathway by experiential learning, by group participation. So it's really neat to see right now that education is looking at that in other areas. But I think traditionally, and certainly when I went to school, schooling was about doing as you were told and being the same as everyone else. And so maybe that explains why in the past you had that drop-off rate, because we didn't encourage people to be creative. We didn't encourage kids to find their own pathway. We didn't encourage them to fail. That's one of the models. If you look at anyone in the startup ecosystem, the talk is, fail fast, fail early, and move on. But that's not something that's traditionally been embraced by society.
So it sounds like you teach young people how to become entrepreneurs, or at least think like entrepreneurs. And and that's coming from a real kind of business mindset. How do you sort of work in teaching them about the social and environmental impacts of business as well?
That's actually quite easy because I'll be honest, the current generation coming through, they naturally think that way. So all you have to do is encourage that. In terms of from a formality point of view, because one of the things is we do work within the school system, and we're really pleased, and some of my predecessors had, I guess, some influence here, but the current school curriculum does talk about things like the quadruple bottom line. So if students want to get credits, they actually need to learn that a quadruple bottom line is about not just financial sustainability, but environmental, social, and cultural sustainability. So, there's a formal part of the learning that talks about that. But then from an informal point of view, kids these days, they just naturally think that way.
Isn't that comforting? That's wonderful to hear. And that must have changed, fairly recently. You've been in business for a little while. When did you see that kind of shift? I think it really has been in the last 5 to 10 years. I think you've seen that shift, and there's some really good pictures. I'm a girl that loves pretty pictures. There's some really good pictures out there when people talk about the spectrum, and I think that's a really important thing. Is if you look at the social enterprise spectrum, you have on the one hand a traditional charity, which is purely about purpose, and then on the other end of the spectrum, you have companies that are purely about profit. But then there's this lovely blended mix, and it's all shades of gray, because you might have an organization that is predominantly for purpose, but it doesn't mean they can't make money. On the flip side, you might have an organization that's set up for profit, but if they're a good corporate citizen and they understand about being a good corporate citizen, then isn't that good as well? If they're creating jobs and creating economic impact, but at the same time being good with your employees and being good with the community. So, I think for us, it's actually explaining that to young people and going, hey, there's this lovely spectrum, and you can sit anywhere you want on that, and purpose and profit don't have to be mutually exclusive. Absolutely. I'm early 30s, and coming through high school and early university years, I always knew that I wanted to, I'm just trying to place it in time, because I really, I knew that I wanted to work for purpose, and I really felt that my only path was to work for not-for-profits. There was never, any chat about businesses with purpose and values and intent, like that. So, it does feel like a really, really exciting change that's happened not too long ago. Well, in New Zealand at least, I suppose.
And I think as well, even big companies, they see it and they recognize that, that there's also demand being driven by the millennials. The millennials do expect that. So if you want a millennial to be either your employee or your customer, you need to actually, think about what they're looking for in an organization that they may choose to work for or choose to buy from as well.
Now, you mentioned before about, failing fast, and you've spoken before about getting knocked back is a big part of success. I don't know if it's too early in the piece, but can you tell us about times that you have failed or been knocked back, and how did that change you?
Absolutely. And it's interesting you asked that question, because I'll sidebar for a second. So, one of our largest sponsors is BPay. In fact, we're quite excited. We're just celebrating their 25th anniversary with us this year. And that's quite amazing because, to have that longevity in a sponsor that really talks about what they do is quite cool. But a few years ago, BP asked me to come and speak to their women's group. And the HR business manager at the time, who knew me from a past life, said, now, Terry, can you actually tell your story? And I'm like, oh, no, I'm coming to talk about Young Enterprise. And she's like, no, I want them to hear your story, and I want them to hear the warts and all story. So I was like, okay, well, I don't really like talking about myself, but okay.
It's pretty vulnerable place to be, isn't it? Yeah.
And so I ended up telling a story there where I said, I'll give you my career history because Yvette's asked me to, but I'm only going to do it for 3 reasons. So I want everyone here to remember that you need to own your own career path. And so if you don't plan it and you don't work hard for it, why would anyone else? I want you to learn that sometimes no matter all the planning and all the best work, you will have disappointments in life. And if you don't have any disappointments in life, you probably haven't tried hard enough. And sometimes those disappointments are the best things ever because you'll look back and think, oh, God, I dodged a bullet there. Or you might think it was a great learning and I became better as a result. And that sometimes despite the planning and despite the being able to deal with knockbacks, that the best opportunities are ones you never thought of, and they only present themselves in a really short period of time. And the combination of all three got me to my current job, which I think is the most amazing job in the world. And then I told my story, and my story involved the dream jobs that I didn't get, one of which resulted in me coming to New Zealand, and 26 years later, I'm still here. So obviously that was a good job to miss out on. It involved the two major promotions I wanted to go for in my career. Were both times I didn't get it, but I stuck around, took the lessons, and the next time the job was open, I got them, and they were big breaks in my career. It involved the 3 times I've been made redundant in my life. I always joke, you haven't lived until you've been made redundant at least twice. My first redundancy was absolutely valid. It was a pure redundancy. My second redundancy was basically their way of getting rid of me because I had made a complaint and I knew that it would cost me my job, and they restructured me out to get rid of me. And I always say my third redundancy was, let's just say, complicated. And so I told this story, and you're right, it is vulnerable because people have this perception. And BP called me up afterwards and they said, we've never had such amazing feedback from one of our speakers. And the issue is, everyone looked at me and they said, oh, she's got the CEO title. It's always been easy for her. Nobody ever talks about what didn't work well for them. And so for this group of young women to hear that actually, you know what? I've had a hard career. I've basically been fired a couple times, but they packaged it as redundancy. I missed out on promotions. I didn't get jobs I went for, but you keep going. I think that's a really positive message. And so for me, I often talk about that. Maybe one of the problems is it's not whether or not we celebrate success enough, but do we celebrate the journey? And that's one of the biggest things we try to tell our students is embrace the journey, embrace the ups and downs and learn from both.
What does that look like when you're working with young people? How do you encourage them to fail fast or to celebrate the journey?
Yeah, so I think for us, we talk about the fact that, we're like an iceberg. So everyone knows Young Enterprise because of our flagship program, the Lion Foundation Young Enterprise Scheme, or YES, as we affectionately call it, where the kids actually set up and run an actual business while they're still in school. So last 2 years of high school, real products and services. And you can't run a business without things going wrong. And so for us, the way we encourage it is by throwing them in the deep end and having them do it for real. It's not theoretical. It's not academic. It's not textbook. They do it. And let me tell you, any business that starts up in the first year is going to have problems. Now, one of the things we love doing, and I particularly love doing, is having a chat to our students towards the end of the year, particularly at our award ceremonies. And I always say, now, tell me, what was the hardest thing? And it's funny how, you have some consistent themes. My particular favorite is when they kind of look around to see who else is listening and they go, we had some team issues. I remember there was a group down in in Dunedin once where we forced some girls to work with the boys from the local school. And this gorgeous young woman, Ranui, looks around and checks who's there and she goes, oh, Terry, I choose my team differently next time. And I made the mistake of saying to her, oh, sweetie, listen, I know we forced you to work with the boys, because we really wanted to get their school on board and they were really, nervous. So, I appreciate that. And then she looked around, and checked to make sure nobody's listening. She goes, oh, no, it wasn't the boys. The boys were great to work with. My girlfriends were useless, though. And I looked at her. I was like, welcome to life. That's called HR issues. I think for us, the best way to encourage them to experience failures, let them just get stuck in.
Just do it.
Yeah.
So you grew up in the United States. Can you talk a little bit about how the differences between American kids and Kiwi kids, specifically around how they view money and, financial literacy and business?
Yeah, so, and in fairness, I've been out for, I'm going to mutter the amount because it'll give away my age, let's just say a couple decades now, but I do go back every year to see my family, my nieces. I think Kiwis have a much more modest view on life. And that translates from a business point of view. I think sometimes what I see is Kiwi kids or even Kiwi adults, not wanting to to brag or put themselves out there. That can also affect you a little bit in sales. Having that nervousness, or when you do have success, oh no, it wasn't a big deal. So I think there's that fine balance. Americans, I think, have a much more natural confidence, which flows into business and putting themselves out there. I think financial capability, it's hard everywhere in the world. And I was talking about this earlier today with somebody who was asking it, and so in addition to all of our programs that teach about business, entrepreneurship, and enterprise, we also do classroom resources for schools to teach about personal finances. And again, years 1 to 13, so budgeting and savings and investing. I was asked the question earlier today about, who does it well? I said, well, actually, I have discovered in my life there is one advantage I've found of having a dictatorship. Because in 2011, we embarked on a 2.5-year project to roll out financial capability into every level of every school in Fiji. Because they had a dictator who decided it would happen. So, one advantage of a dictatorship.
Do they not describe that as a asterisked benevolent dictatorship of some kind?
Yes, it is a benevolent dictatorship, but it worked, and
I thought you were going to go and talking about your leadership style, so that was that was a relief that it came into Fiji right at the end there.
It's David here with a special invitation over halfway into Rebecca's chat about being good with money with Terry from Young Enterprise Trust. My goal for this show, talking with innovators, creatives and enterprises, aka TWICE, is to be useful by capturing and sharing the positive dents people are making on society through their stories, learns and journeys to now. I'm inviting expressions of interest for future co-hosts like Caitlin, Jen, Rebecca and Jack have been in the last year. I especially encourage women and others underrepresented in mainstream media to get in touch. Reach out via any of the channels mentioned in a moment. It'll be especially useful if you're Wellington based. Send us your show feedback and comments, future guest suggestions and co-hosting expressions of interest via twicepodcast.com/contact and on Twitter and Instagram @twicepodcast. You can also connect with Rebecca on Twitter @Bo_RECKA, Bo-Recca, and me @David_Binstead. Returning to Rebecca's chat with Terry, she dove back in by asking about the role of Young Enterprise Trust in the Pacific Islands.
You spoke before about working in the Pacific. What was that like? What were you guys achieving over there, and what was the experience like?
Yeah, so for us, it's a really interesting thing because people ask why we do work in the Pacific. And I'll be honest, there's two reasons. One is our focus is on we talk about improving the prosperity of New Zealanders and New Zealand. So if we can help at an individual level people to be more prosperous, by either making them more employable, better at business or entrepreneurial, and helping them manage their money better, then they will have more financial prosperity, however they choose to define it, and they'll have more choices in life. So if an individual has more prosperity, their family is better off, their community is better off, and New Zealand's better off. And ultimately, we are here for the greater good of New Zealand. So we're not looking at world domination. We're looking at helping New Zealanders and New Zealand as a country. The thing with the Pacific is it's so interlinked to New Zealand. So many people who live in New Zealand, whether they're citizens or residents, have family back in the islands and do a lot to financially support them. So from our perspective, that effect of if the Pacific Islands aren't sustainable and prosperous in their own right affects New Zealanders. And then, of course, New Zealand Aid does so much to financially support from a government perspective that, again, it affects us at a country level. So we take partially a view that, by helping the Pacific, we are helping New Zealand. And so some of the work we've done there, I guess we've done lots of bits and pieces, but our two main projects, the first was one I was referring to earlier, to roll financial capability resources out to all schools in Fiji, and that was a really neat exercise. And we worked with PFIP and the United Nations Development Program on that. And they're actually just doing some eval on that this year, so we're really excited to see what comes out of that. And then we then had a 2-year project to roll out all of our enterprise programs into the Cook Islands, which was really neat. So we have the Cook Islands actually running not just our flagship program, yes, but some of our junior programs as well. And so they send someone over every year to or every other year to our It's Business Time conference for teachers. But again, the same concept was, if we can help them to actually be more enterprising, then they'll be better off. I think for us, the lessons is just in learning to be adaptable, because it is a different country and it's a slightly different culture, and to understand that culture and the context that they're in, is really important. And what might work well in New Zealand, you have to adapt when you're over there. But ultimately, we're still talking about awesome young people and teaching them, to be enterprising, or financially capable.
Wonderful. So you are a board member of the Wellington Culinary Events Trust as well?
I am. It's quite fun.
So how does working, that's something so completely different from working with young people, financial literacy. How does working in that industry help with your current work, or are they just two completely separate buckets?
No, and I'll think back to when I was first approached to join the board, and then I did have to get permission from my chair. So I typed this beautiful email to my chair saying, now, I've been called and asked to join this board, and here are the pros and cons. Now, the only con I really could come up with was, the time it would take, and I do have a very full day job. Now, the pros I actually said is actually what we stand for at Young Enterprise is about helping businesses grow. So whether it's about making people that are going to be better employees, better innovators, or actually set up their own businesses, all of it is about business and growing businesses. And so when you look at what Wellington Culinary Events Trust is, which for those that don't know is the organization behind Visa Wellington on a Plate and Beervana, it's actually about growing the sector, the hospitality sector and the food sector in Wellington. So as a consumer, you just think, wow, it's a really cool 2-week, wine and food festival. But in reality, it was designed to actually help the hospitality and the food industry during what's traditionally a slow time for them, the month of August. So there is actually a direct connection. And then, to be perfectly honest, I'm a foodie. Like, how could you say no to it? It's fabulous.
Well, Pomegranate Kitchen is having an event this year, so I hope I'll see you there.
Oh, definitely. Actually, might have to be one of the first to buy tickets to that. I was going to say, Sarah will probably kill me for asking you this, but can you share what the event is?
It's this won't make the cut anyway because David will cut it out. But it's going to be out in the Beach House Cafe in Island Bay near the Red Rocks. And it's going to be like a Middle Eastern feast, I guess, shared dining.
Done, I'm there.
Hey, so moving right along, we ask all of our guests to talk about their first, worst and best jobs. Could you name those for us?
First, worst and best job. So my first job was ice cream. Yeah, I told you I was a foodie. I worked for my cousin in an ice cream parlor. That was part of my uncle's amusement park.
Wild.
Yep, and so I lived with Grandma for the summer. I was 14 years old, and I scooped ice cream. And then my next job was actually back home working in an ice cream shop. So I never really got sick of ice cream. People said that would have put me off it, but no. So my first job was working for my cousin, scooping ice cream. My best job, it's got to be the one I have right now. It is awesome. It really is. And it was funny. I was actually talking to Colin about this earlier today, which is people assume it's just the feel-good factor, and don't get me wrong, it is. But actually, at a professional level, it has also been my best job. I had, almost 20 years in the IT industry, worked for, I've worked for small companies and big ones, but I spent a lot of my career working for big multinational corporates with budgets that I could only dream about now. Seriously, oh my God. I thought we were good with money back then. No, but the thing is, what I learned is when you work for a big multinational, you get good at implementing somebody else's strategy. With what we do and with my current job, it's my first time where it really is, you're totally driving your own strategy. And that is so cool. And it was scary as well, I should point out. And the thing is that we have a whole organization of people who want to work for us. So everyone wants to do more. So our biggest thing is we just have more ideas than we have time and money. And so learning to prioritize. So at a professional level, that ability to really, do, anything is possible is something that I never got in my corporate career. So I think, for both the feel-good factor, the impact we're having, and at a professional level, definitely my current job. Do I have to answer the last one, my worst job?
You do. It's the rules.
I have to think about that.
You're such a positive person. Maybe you don't have a worst job.
Well, I'll be honest. People think because I love my job, I hated the IT industry. I love the IT industry. I was really, it's a really exciting industry. And I think for me, I sometimes say I feel bad for people that get stuck in jobs they hate because you spend so much of your life at work. And I guess for me, I look at why that happens for other people, and I think, sometimes it is your situation, your personal, your financial, your family situation is such that you can't afford to go. But sometimes I think it's a confidence thing. And maybe that's the American in me coming out. But I always joke, I've never suffered from a lack of confidence. And so for me, if I get to that stage where I'm not enjoying a job, I get out. So I probably still haven't answered your question, which is I've never had a job I've hated, but I've had jobs where by the end I was over it.
Yeah.
And then I've quit. And if I tie that back into one of the reasons I love what we do is it's a part of what we do is about creating that confidence and that self-belief. And if you have that, you'll back yourself to make a change if you need to. And in terms of the financial capability, I always sort of say, if you are good with your money, it gives you choices in life. If I hadn't been good with my money, could I have afforded to take 2 6-month career breaks? No. But the combination of my confidence level and the fact that I had savings in the bank meant I could give myself that option.
What analog object, item or thing could you not live without? So it can't be digital, can't be a phone.
What can't I live without? Well, I couldn't live without my fur babies. I couldn't live without books. I actually probably would struggle without my watch. I like to know what time it is all the time. And can I say travel? Travel balances me.
Okay.
Yeah.
In what way?
Well, first of all, I love travel in terms of I'm an explorer traveler. So experiencing something new, experiencing a new culture, visiting and seeing things that I haven't done before, meeting new people. And I think for me, I know that, I unfortunately am a workaholic. I always have been, but also when you love what you do, it's hard to tune out. So I think it's important not to say that that's a bad thing, but to figure out what else balances you in life. And so travel balances me.
Yeah, the dominant narrative is that being a workaholic is negative, but I have heard some people say that if that's who you are, you just have to learn how to manage it in the best way. You can't try to be something that you're not. What do you think about that?
Yeah, and I think I remember a couple of years ago somebody said it's not about work-life balance, it's about work-life blend. And I think in today's day and age, the more we can talk about blend, the better.
So can you tell us what's coming up for Young Enterprise Trust over the next 6 months to a year?
Oh, it's very exciting times. So in terms of activity right now, our students that are doing the Lion Foundation Young Enterprise Scheme have kicked off. So we're starting to see what products and services they're going to be offering. So that's a really exciting time. We do a few what we call our intense experiences. So really those that start participating and doing this, where they get the entrepreneurial spirit, or they get the innovation spirit, to give them a more intense opportunity to take it to the next level, to bond with other people that are very excited. So the two next things we have coming up is next week we're actually taking 10 young students to Singapore on a very exciting opportunity, a combination of a study tour where you get to visit companies, visit people in the startup ecosystem, but also connect with some local students and do a bit of a business competition with them as well. So that is really taking it to the next level. And then we have our Entrepreneurs in Action Weekend happening at the end of June. So that's where, of our 3,800 students that we'll do Yes this year, we take 80 of our top students that have applied for it to what I like to call is Yes meets Startup Weekend on steroids. Don't do steroids, it's bad. I do tell the students that. But basically, it's this intense experience where we throw these 80 kids together. We put them into teams. So 10 teams of 8. So they're working with people they've never met before. And they basically get a challenge on one day. They have a day to create their business plan or their market entry strategy, pitch it to a panel of judges. They repeat it with a different opportunity the next day. At the end, you have a team winner from the first challenge, a team winner from the second challenge, and we're going to select another 10 kids to do another overseas trip. So pretty intense, actually.
Wow.
Yeah. We like to say to both the students that participate and the corporate hosts that mentor for the weekend, it's a weekend about the 3 E's. It's the most exciting, exhilarating, exhausting weekend of your life. Make sure you sleep before and afterwards.
Where can we find you publicly online, both for Young Enterprise Trust and just personally as well?
So obviously our website is www.youngenterprise.org.nz. We've got various different social media channels, as you would expect. So, just search for us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn for Young Enterprise. So that's really easy. Great way to, I'll be honest, most of what we post is things that our students are doing. So it's just, it's a fun thing to follow. Do it right now because, as I said, we've got 10 amazing young people about to head to Singapore. So we'll be posting about their experiences regularly. Do that. And for myself, I'm actually quite easy to find. So, I always joke, I'm the short American female with the boy's first name and the unusual surname. So, Terry with a Y, that is the boy's way of spelling it. I'm convinced my parents must have wanted a boy. And then I am the only Shubkin in New Zealand. And
that's an unusual last name for here.
One of only a handful in the world.
Oh, wow.
And when I got married, people wondered why I didn't want to change my name. So, on the one hand, I could be Shubkin, which, is just kind of a cool name, and it's unusual. And it's my brand as well. So I developed my career under the name Shubkin. So if you hear Terry Shubkin, you probably know who you're talking about. My husband, as much as I love him, his surname is Jones. Yeah, thank you.
Not much of a chance. That's a choice.
Why would I have changed to Jones? Yeah. So very easy to find me.
Well, Terry Shubkin, thank you so much for coming in today and chatting with us about your passions and about what Young Enterprise Trust is doing. It's been a real pleasure.
Thank you very much. I've loved it.
Kia ora. It's David here, top and tailing Rebecca's chat with Terry, recorded here in the Pod Cave at Biz Dojo Co-work Wellington. The conversation continues after this short outro with sidebars that didn't make the main 30-minute episode cut. I've been reflecting on Rebecca's chat with Terry, and here are some of the standouts for me. How Terry has embraced and managed failure, and her honesty about sharing why those failures are important. The importance of having a plan and remaining resilient in the face of adversity while also being really adaptable. Trying new stuff, which seems to be a mantra both of hers and as a central credo of the Young Enterprise Trust. With the idea of never accepting the status quo, giving permission to pursue unconventional but highly beneficial plans. My key takeout is her positioning of financial education being bigger than just pocket money, with it being about life skills for developing an entrepreneurial mindset, which will serve young people well in negotiating the uncertain and fast-changing future of work. It's brilliant that the carefully iterated program holds such wide appeal and also absolute relevance 37 years since starting. Most of all, it's Terry's infectiously inclusive, human and down-to-earth personality, which nurtures relationships with sponsors, schools, businesses, and every program participant who comes into contact with her. You can find show notes and links through your podcast app of choice and via twicepodcast.com. Episodes now include chapter markers, meaning you can jump to specific show segments precisely when they're mentioned in the conversation. Thanks very much to Marco Arment, maker of the Overcast app, for making that functionality available to producers free of charge. I'm grateful to 2 Wellington organisations for support to be building this show, and I encourage you to check them out. BizDojo are at the forefront of creating and facilitating communities where talented, interesting and clever humans pursue their passions through a network of co-work spaces across New Zealand, which you can check out at bizdojo.com. Their goal is to facilitate communities of people to collaborate in an inclusive, friendly and respectful environment. With flexible options for small and large teams and contract-free plans to suit any business, go develop and deliver your purpose over at bizdojo.com. I'm also grateful to the Wellington City Council funded Collider Wellington programme, featured at colliderwgtn.com. Their monthly programme of largely free events is designed to facilitate connections with thought leaders, emerging entrepreneurs and inspirational experts. You can access world-class intelligence, hang with some of the smartest people on earth and learn something new in the greatest little city on earth, Wellington, New Zealand. For all the details, go to colliderwellington.com, which is spelt colliderwgtn.com. Next up, I'm chatting with global changemakers recently gathered at the Edmund Hillary Fellowship's New Frontiers 2018 event. That makes for an easy episode match, as Edmund Hillary Fellowship team leads Alina and Yoseph were featured in episode 51, talking about the programme, impacts, and also with a side serve of slam poetry at the end. Emily and Carl from the Plankton agency have been hard at work on new show artwork concepts that capture and distill the show into a new logo design. I'm excited to see how they and the rest of the Plankton agency creative team interpret and visualise the logo brief we've discussed. I'll keep you updated on logo deliberations, and I'll be excited to share it with you when it's finished. You can check out their great work and services over at www.plankton.agency. Thanks again to Jar Gibson for the gift of the current show artwork and for contributing expertise and encouragement alongside regular co-hosting in the show's first year. If you particularly enjoy listening to an episode, I exhort you to share it with your mates via a short note, and or by tagging them and us in a comment at Twice Podcast via Twitter, Instagram and even the devil Facebook. You can also dazzle fellow humans by showing them how easy it is to subscribe to this show, Twice, Talks with Innovators, Creatives and Enterprises, via many places including Apple Podcasts, Spotify and also via the web. Thanks again to episode 76 guest Terry Shubkin from Young Enterprise Trust and episode host Rebecca Stewart. Also, BizDojo, Collider Wellington, our Patreon patrons who chip in to offset monthly audio hosting costs, and a big thank you to you for lending us your ears. It means a lot. Cheers.
Are you ever tempted to take some of the ideas that the young people come up with and just like start your own business?
Actually, I'll tell you what, that's a really funny thing. We've had some people who've done, like particularly EIA weekend where we've got the corporate house. We had this gorgeous woman who mentored several years in a row from Russell Investments. And she actually called us up one day and said, I can't do it this year. I've quit. Like, why have you quit? She goes, well, every year I go away from your event thinking I should do something, and this year I've decided to do it. I'm setting up my own company.
Excellent.
Yeah, so that's really cool. So yeah, I have to admit, though, I'll be honest, I don't think I'm as creative as some of the young people. Like some of the stuff they come up with, it's so cool. Actually, sorry, before I'm going to tell you, can I just sidebar for a second and tell you a funny story about people?
Yes.
So you also have the other end of the spectrum. So before I came to this job, I never knew so many people that had knighthoods or damehoods. Okay, so my 2 funny stories. Can I just do this? Okay,
of course.
My 2 funny stories. We actually own and run the New Zealand Business Hall of Fame, not widely known, other end of the spectrum. These are people that are at the end of their career or past it, because we induct half of them are dead, so they're definitely older. We had one event where, have you heard the story? So our event manager comes up to me with event management smile on, and I'm talking to someone, she's like, hi, Terry. And I thought, yeah, smile's too big.
Something's wrong.
Excuse me a second. I said, okay, excuse me just one second. Hey, sweetie, what's wrong? She said, we have a night here without a ticket. This is a black tie, 500-person dinner. We spend days doing the seating plan on this.
Oh my gosh.
So I would have never had this in a past life. I looked at her and went, which one? Who says that? Which one? Which night? It's my knighthood. So that was one story. And then when she said, Sir William, I'm like, Gallagher, yes. Lady Judy with her, yes. Oh, shit, excuse my language, So that's one. And then my other favorite story, can I just tell you this one because this is hysterical? So right after I started, it was our 30th anniversary. The Governor General has traditionally been our patron. The Governor General had just changed over, so Jerry had taken over. He'd just accepted our patronage request and just accepted to host our 30th anniversary party. So Robin and I, and actually Siobhan Bolfin, who was doing some work for us at the time, if you come across her, and Lee Hales. Anyways, 4 of us traipse on down to Government House to meet with Jackie from the events team to talk about this. Now, we don't know. Government House has just reopened. I've never been to Government House. Why would I ever be in Government House? 2-year renovation. So we go in the back entrance as requested. They say, where are you going? We said, we're going. Park the car. Security guard comes up. We said, we're meeting Jackie to discuss an event at the ballroom. So, yeah, you go over there. Leaves us. So we go over there, which I now know is the ballroom, which, of course, is locked. So we're standing there by ourselves and going, what do we do? So then we're like, oh, look, there's another door, which I now know is the main entrance, but I didn't know. It's locked. We're looking in like a bunch of 5-year-olds, And all of a sudden, one of the other women goes, oh, look, somebody's coming. So like a 5-year-old, I go, oh, shit, it's the Governor General himself. So seriously, Sir Jerry opens the door with this lovely but confused look on his face and goes, in his slippers, and goes, hi, can I help you? So I'm panicking because I've never dealt with these type of people before. And I'm going, oh, Your Excellency, because I know that's how you're supposed to dress them. Your Excellency, hi, I'm Terry from Young Enterprise. These are my colleagues. We're just here to talk to Jackie about the function. Oh, come in, dear. I was just writing my speech for your function. Did you know my daughter did Young Enterprise? Chat away in his slippers.
Amazing. Yeah, that's New Zealand for you, isn't it?
Sorry, I've sidebarred and I know you were about to ask me a question.
No, that's brilliant.
I was about to ask you a much less interesting question, I guess.